So Record of Ragnarok, the manga where humans fight gods, the pinnacle of humanity versus the pinnacle of divinity. Now, of course, we know that wouldn't make any sense if it were to be taken at face value. Obviously, divinity would overrule humanity, but that is why we were given Volunds, to even the odds, to give the humans a chance to fight on par with them and even kill them. But there are instances within the series where human fighters are actually able to kill gods without a Volund. So why is this the case? I think to answer that question, you first have to understand what a Volund truly is. When it was first brought up in the series, Hilda was questioned by her sister Gol, how is Lubu gonna stand up to Thor? Does he really have any chance against God? And she said, of course not. The gods have these cheat weapons that no human would be able to withstand and no human weapon could measure up to. So we've developed a way, i.e. Volund, to give the human their own divine weapon to go toe-to-toe with the weapon of the gods. A weapon that can withstand the force of these blows, and a weapon that will not crumble from one divine strike. So at first, it's kind of positioned to tell you that these weapons just even the odds. Basically, you keep the human fighter, you give them a divine weapon, and these weapons, of course, are the very essence of one of the Valkyrie sisters. The Valkyrie sister themselves turns into the weapon for the human. So then you get that explanation, you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but still, the gods should be above. It doesn't really matter if they have a divine weapon. The godly being should still have far greater stats, right? And that's when you find out that there's actually more to it, because a lot of people still believe that that's the only truth when it comes to Volunds, that they're just weapons. They don't actually increase the human fighter stats. That is not the case at all. We got the explanation when Loki confronted Buddha in the garden for what Volund truly is. It is truly a Buddhist technique called common destiny, aka fates intertwine, in which two beings forfeit their lives and put them on the same lotus in exchange for bringing out the full potential of one's being. And this full potential is not just that of the human, but it's also that of the Valkyrie. So it's truly the symbiosis between both a divine being and a human being, all rolled into one, which creates a very powerful fighter. Meaning that yes, the Valkyrie sisters are more than just a weapon. And this is the reason for why the Valkyries will die with their human if the human should fall in their battle. Because when you think about it logically, if the Valkyrie was just the weapon, they would not die unless the weapon itself was destroyed. Like, you can make that argument like, oh, if the god destroys the divine weapon, they potentially are destroying the Valkyrie. But there's instances, namely Adam with his brass knuckles, his knuckle duster, where the divine weapon is fully intact, yet the Valkyrie would still die with him. It's because their literal soul essence is combined into one. They share the same lotus. They are one being at that time. They've merged together. So it is not just an instance of, yes, I have a divine weapon. It's also a major buff, which amps their stats to match the gods. If you are enjoying this video and enjoying the Record of Ragnarok content, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Also drop a like, it really helps the channel and I appreciate it. Now, the first instance of a human killing a godly being is, of course, Adam. Now, Adam killed the serpent, of course. Now, the serpent is a representative of a demon, not necessarily a god per se, but it's still a divine being that should not be able to be killed by a human if we are to follow the standards that were laid out, that a divine weapon must be used or Volund must be initiated. Now, Adam's case specifically is one where I think that you can kind of get away with throwing that one under the rug. First and foremost, we know Adam was created in the image of God. He wasn't created in the image of any of the gods we see in the series, but there's actually a picture of him being created by the Christian God himself in direct reference to the Bible. We've obviously seen Jesus in the manga, so we know he exists. So potentially this Christian God would be in another tier, separated from the gods we've seen. That might be one explanation, and such Adam being in his image would directly be on these gods' level. It's also fair to say that Adam, being the first human, he grew up in divine lands. He fraternized with these gods. It was common practice for him to meet with them and live amongst them. And so he is more divine than any other human would be, especially given that his powers are divine reflection in the eyes of the Lord, which literally can copy any divine technique. So if he's in a fight with a god, he can literally just copy their technique. And that's exactly what happens with the serpent, where he literally copies the claws of the serpent, giving him technically divine claws there, which are able to rip right through the serpent. So Adam, when you look at it, you're like, okay, Adam is kind of the exception of the rule. Of course, he would be able to fight on par with the gods and be able to kill divine beings. That all makes sense. And that even reinforces why common destiny was so important, because we know Adam can already kill gods. He gets a stat boost or potentially a stamina boost from his Valkyrie with common destiny. But the one that really sticks out as potentially the most impressive and the most out of place within the story is Qin Shi Huang killing the god Qi Yu when he was set to become emperor of all China. Qin is not the first human being. He does not have a divine reflection type of ability. He's not able to copy the powers of a god. Now you could say he can reflect the powers of a god back at him with heavenly handed defense, which redirects one's attack back at them with equal force. So potentially you can make the argument here where Qin can redirect a god's attack back at them. And Qi Yu obviously being one of the lower tier gods, a weaker god, and potentially just a demon, it would make sense that Qin was able to redirect his attacks even without a Volund at the time and the stat boost, because Qi Yu is vastly weaker than any of the gods we see in the tournament. And of course, it was a difficult battle for Qin at the time. That's obviously where he learned the technique of Qi Yu, his redirection and all that type of shit with his martial arts. And that would give him the ability to surpass a god in battle, right? He's redirecting that god's attacks back at him. But still, redirecting the attacks is a wild feat as a mortal man. And the damage still comes from a human. Now he also toys with Ares, was able to go toe-to-toe with pre-labor Hercules. It's clear that you do not need a divine weapon to kill a god. And another prime example of this is Raiden. Raiden's Volund is not a divine weapon. Raiden's Volund is a power that gives him the ability to harness all his strength, his true potential, the direct representation of what common destiny was, being able to finally tap into that full potential. He does not need a divine weapon to damage Shiva. He has the strength to do so. Obviously, he gets a massive amp from the Valkyrie and is able to reach his full potential, but his power, his raw power, is enough. So you see, it really doesn't come down to needing a divine weapon. It comes down to you have to be able to harness enough power to damage them. And the divine weapons generally serve as a defense mechanism to counter the god's divine weapon. It's to be able to block it. It's to be able to parry. Because if you did not have this divine weapon, you just get cut through like butter if you're fighting a person with a weapon and you don't have one, right? Now in Raiden's case, of course, it's convenient that Shiva did not decide to use his divine weapon, because in mythology, Shiva actually has a trident very similar to Poseidon. So they probably just didn't want to do it because of the similarities would probably confuse some people, but also because they wanted to make it a brawl of a fight. And Raiden's ability wasn't going to have a divine weapon, so they're like, oh, we're not going to give Shiva a divine weapon, it'll just be a scrap. But I think this is an important video for people that have a hard time believing humans can defeat gods. It's because what they're not understanding is that common destiny is more than a weapon. As I mentioned time and time again throughout this video, it essentially makes that human a demigod in their own right, gives them true divinity within their soul. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Drop a like. Also, go check out my community post where I'm going to be taking questions for a Q&A video that'll be dropping later this week. I'll see you guys then. Peace. If they question how I get it, I got answers. Like, well, she got me tripping like